going to use pages. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to create a page size. So this will represent the number of messages that we need to get per request. So our page is going to have 12 messages. The current page, so this will come from the front end. So request dot query, by default we're going to page 1, and we need to calculate the numbers of messages to skip. So const skip messages. Here we're going to have page -1 multiplied by the page size. So we need to find the messages with pagination. So let's say find messages with pagination. Let's just add some comments on top. Okay, let's close this one first. Let's add a comment here. We need to calculate the number of messages to skip. So this is number of messages per page. This is the current page. So if you want to go to the next page, you pass in your query 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. So you can get the messages from those pages. So here's supposed to be current page number. So let's move on. So we're going to find the message by chart ID. So in here we need charts. So it's going to come from our request params. So we need to populate the sender. We need to populate the chart. So here, let's copy this line here. It's not user here. We just need to populate sender. After populate, so it's dot populate. After populating the sender, we need to populate the chart. And we need to sort the messages. We're going to sort by created date. By descending order. The next thing that we need to do, we need to skip. So in here, we're going to use our skip message. Skip messages. So here we can say skip pages, skip messages based on pagination. And we have to set a limit. And our limit is going to be our page size. So that's 12 messages. Let's close it here. So here it's supposed to be messages is equals to await. So we need user dot populate. We are going to populate message here. Messages. And what are we going to populate? We need a path. So our path remains the same. It's chat dot users, and we need to select what to populate. Oh no. So we are selecting the same. Okay, so we can just copy it from here. Here is supposed to be messages. whether we didn't make an error. Oh, we have a typo. We have a typo here. It's supposed to be messages. Yes, so our error is gone. So after populating, we need to return a response. So we have response.json. We're going to return messages. Okay, let's just copy our 400 from below and put it up. 400. Yeah, it's supposed to be 500. Okay, so let's give this. Okay, let's call it error here. And it has to be a string. Couldn't retrieve messages. So that's all about it when it comes to messages. The next thing that we need to do, we need to create our chart. Okay, let's see whether we export it. Yes, we export them. We export them from the top. We need to work on our chart controller and our chart routes. So let's go ahead and do that. Add our chart routes. So in our routes, we need to create a new file. Let's call it chart.js. So let's just copy our message here, our message, and let's paste it in our chart. So in our chart, we require the router, we require the middleware, and the other thing that we require, we're going to require a chart controller. So in here we have a post request, a post endpoint, and it's going to require a chart controller. Chat controller. So here we need to access messages. Okay, let's just call it access messages. It's okay. We have get. So our get is going to require middleware. Here is supposed to be controller. We require chat controller, and we need to get the chart. Okay, so we need to put some comment get charts, and here it's supposed to be create chart. So let's go ahead and create our controller. Not in routes. In our controllers, let's create a chat controller, and the spelling is okay. In our chat controller, we're going to create two functions, but the first thing that we need our chat model. And that's the first thing that we need. The second thing that we need is our user model. So we need those two. So we need to give names. So the first thing that we need, our names has to be corresponding with the names that we gave in our router. Here it's supposed to be access chart, not access message. Let's save that, copy, go to our controller, paste that. So it has to be asynchronous, and it will require a request response. We need an arrow function. Let's close it here. Then down below, we need to get charts. So let's just create. So let's start with get chat first, and then we work on access chat because it's a little bit longer. So in here, we need a try catch block. In our try, we need to find the chart. And so we have to match to the request user ID. And so we need to populate here. The first thing that we need to populate users. And we have to exclude the password. Next, we need to populate group admin without a password. Let's just populate, but we are going to use it. And we want to populate the latest message, and we want to sort the messages. It's supposed to be updated at -1. So we have to await users. We need to populate users also. So here, what we get on top, that's results, is equals to await a user.populate, and we want to populate the results. In our results, we need to specify the path. So our path is going to be a latest message. Let's just copy from here. .sender. And we need to select, so we're going to select the same parameters that we selected in our message controller. So let's just come here. Let's just copy from here so that we won't have any error. So after pasting this select, so we are going to require username, profile, and email. We need to return a response. So first, our status is going to be 200, and we need to send results. So down here, we need to handle the error. So we have a status, and our status code is going to be 500. So here, we need to pass a message. Okay. Let's just pass a message. Okay, let's just say failed to retrieve chart. Okay, that's about it when getting charts. So the next is to try to access the chart, like that's creating and accessing the chart. Or access chart. So to access chart or to create a chart, what we need a user ID first of the person that we are going to chat with. So here we're going to have a user ID, and it's going to come from our request body. Okay, let's go back, let's close it. If not user ID, we need to set a condition here. Then we need to send a response to the user. So we have status, and our code is going to be 400 here. Okay, let's just pass JSON user. Okay, invalid user. Let's just say user ID. So now we need to create a chart. So here, so we need to check whether it's a group chart or not. If it is false, then we need users in here. So in users, we have to match the request user ID. That's the first thing. And the next user has to be our user from our body, this one here. Okay, let's bring it down. We need to populate these users, and we need to exclude the password. Yeah, okay. We need to exclude the password. We also need to populate the latest message. So we need to populate the users here. And they're coming from its chart. So we need to provide the path that we need to populate and the elements that we need to populate. So it's going to be the same here. So we copy and we paste it here. So once we get the chart, we need to check the length. So when creating, if the length is greater than 0, then that means we have a chart that's already existing in our database. So we need to send back the chart. Else we are going to create a chart. So to create a chart, we need chart data. So our chart data is going to have a chart name, and our chart name is going to be the person who created the chart. So it's request.user.id, and we're going to need is group chat by default false, and we need users. So we need a list of users. So the first one is going to be a request user.id, and our next user is going to be the user ID that we input in our body. So still in this else, we need a try catch block. So in our try, we want to create the chart, and in here we have to pass the chart data. Okay, our chart data, we have to put a lowercase c here. So we need to pass our chart data in here. After passing our chart data, then we need to populate. And the first thing that we need to populate is users, and we need to exclude the password. Then we return a response. Status code here is going to be 200, and we need to pass the JSON. So here we're going to pass a full chart here. Otherwise, we're going to pass a 400. So let's just copy the one that we have below and change the code to 400 instead of 500. So here it's failed to create the chart. So that's about it. So next we're going to try to hook our controllers to our routes, and then we can put them in our index.js. So let's just take care of the routes now. So we can uncomment these and then try to import the controllers. So this is send message. So it's imported on top. So we're good. Okay, just to be sure, I'm going to remove them and import them again. Message controller dot. Okay. So we are done for that part. Let's go to our chart. In our chart, let's uncomment. Okay, we don't need to comment. So we need a chat controller. Here it's supposed to be access chart. Okay. So it's working. It's fine here. So next we're going to try to hook them in our index.js, and then we try to send some messages, and then we can break on our sockets and visit our index.js. After opening our index.js, we need to import the routes here. So we need 2 routes. So the first one is going to be a chat route, and it's going to require chat here. And the next one is going to be a message route. and it's going to require a message here. After we're done, we can come down here and create the endpoints that we want to use. So here, the first one, we just have to rename to chat. And this chat is going to use chat route. And we have our messages. Okay, so here it's supposed to be chats, not chart. So chats. Messages is going to require message route. So our application is running okay. So that means everything is working okay. So the next thing that we need to do, we need to go to our Postman. Now let's go to our Postman and try to run some tests and see whether we can create charts or not. So let's move to Postman. So in Postman, the first thing that you need to do, you just need to keep your collections in order. So you can create folders for each and every, like for your endpoints. So for instance, our chart is going to be in the chart folder. So we need to get chart, or we need to post and create. So the first thing that you need here, you need to be logged in and you need to have like a user token. So to test this, you need two users. One, you, and the other user that you're going to be chatting with. So here, you can just go to log in a user. That will be your user, I bet. So you get the token from here. Go to your charts. Just change this one to the new token that you've logged in with. So I need to find another user. So for me, I might need to go back to VS Code and try to access the database and see whether I can find another user. So my database is connected. Okay, I'll go to users. I've created quite a lot of users while I'm trying to run some tests and stuff. So here, okay, so we have this user here. I'm going to get the user ID. And I'm going to go back to Postman. So in Postman, in our body, we need to provide an ID. So that's our user ID. So we need to send this post request and see whether we can successfully create a chat or not. Ooh, that was good. We've successfully created a chat. So here we have our chat name, which is the ID that we are logged in with. And we have our users. Which are like the first user. That's my ID. That's my information here, excluding the password. And the second user is the user that we just passed. The information has been populated and we have this kind of information. So what we need to retrieve from here, we need to retrieve the chat ID. So because we need the chat ID to send a message to that chat. So you need to create a folder with your charts and you need to create a post request. So in your post request, you need to provide content and chat ID. We've finished testing, creating our chat. We need to create a message, but there's some few things that we need to do before we proceed. So we need to go to our models first. In our models, make sure that this receive is the same as the receive that you have in your controller. In your controller here, make sure that the receive, the spelling is the same. That's the first thing. The second thing, we need to, because like when we created this function, we forgot to import chart. So most probably you're going to run into an error. So what you need to do, you need to come here and import chart model. Make sure that you have 3 models on top, one for the chart, the second one is for the message, and the third one is for the user. Otherwise, you won't be able to create a message. You get an error 400, a status 400. So I guess that's all. So let's go to our Postman. In our Postman here, we need to go to messages, send a message. So to send a message, we said we need a chat ID. So here we've created a chart, isn't it? So this is the ID of our chart. So we need to send a message. So we need to, okay, let me go back and post it again and copy the chat ID again. So after copying the chat ID, you need to paste it here. That's one. You need to provide the content, what you need to say to the user. So I've already sent a message already while I was testing. So I'll send the next message. So I'm going to say, hi, I'm Andre. Something like that. And you need to make sure that your token is matching the token that you've logged in with. If not, let's take, for example, now, let's say having no token is the same as providing a wrong token. So like if you send, you're not authenticated. So you don't want that. So you need to copy your token, the latest token, you paste it here. After pasting your token, check your spellings, whether the receiver, the chat ID, and the content, the spellings are corresponding to what you've written in your models. And then after that, you can send a message. So by hitting send, our latest message in our chat is going to be updated. So we're going to send, and we're going to go get our chat. And if we get our chat, in our chat, our latest message is going to be updated. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've sent a message. I'm the sender. So, hi, I'm Andre. This is the content that I've sent. This is the latest message. So this latest message is being sent to our charts. So if we go to our charts and try to retrieve charts here, so it's not the first chart. So the next thing that we need to do is to try to get the messages. So to get the messages here, we need a chart ID. Okay, let me check. To get the messages, what do we need? We need to go to our router. We need the chat ID to get the messages. So let's go to our Postman. So this is our chat here, and this is our chat ID. Let's just copy it, and let's just paste it here. Okay, I think the token is invalid. So let me go ahead and copy this token from here, and I'll paste it down here. And I need to save. After saving, I need to go ahead and make the request. So after making the request, this is the chat that we've just created. So this is our first message. It's a list. This is our first message. Hi, how are you? And our second message is going to be, okay, I've sent this twice. Okay, this is the message that I last sent. Let's see. Yeah, so I've sent this message a couple of times. Just put the chat ID here. You can get all your chats, all the messages that you've sent, and all the messages that you've received. Our sockets, to integrate sockets in our backend, the first thing that we need to check is to check the packages and see whether we have sockets.io. So we have it already installed in our dependencies, but if you don't have it, you can go ahead and run the command npm I. So you are installing socket.io. So it will just give me a message because I have it already. So that's how we install sockets. The next thing that we need to do, we need to go back to our index.js. And here we need to create a server using this app.listen. So we need a const server is equals to app.listen, and then this remains the same. So let's close it here. And down below here, we need to use our server to create a socket server. We need const io is equals to. So here we are going to require socket io, and we have to pass our server in here. After passing our server, we need to pass some parameters. So the first parameter that we're going to have our ping timeout, and we're going to set it to 60,000. And we need our cores here. So in our cores, we need origin, where we are going to access the server from. So we have two options for now. So it's either you can work from localhost, or you can work from the server that we hosted on Railway. So I'm going to write code for both, but for me, I'm going to use the server that I have hosted on Railway to implement this server, because our application is hooked already to this server. So if we use localhost, they will definitely conflict. So we don't want conflicts. So if we're using localhosts, so you need to provide a string here. So it's going to be HTTP, and you need to specify your port, localhosts. Our application is running on port 5001. So let's put a comment here. This one is for the localhost. So if you want to use that one, then you can uncomment it, then you can use it. So here we're going to have the hosted server. So we're going to have our origin here. So we need to go to our Railway and get the URL. So this is our application. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click. So this is my URL, but I need the HTTPS. So I'm just going to copy everything from there. And let's go back to VS Code. In VS Code, we just need to paste the URL. So we're going to access our server from this URL. So after that, just need to close here. And let's go down. So here we want to connect our IO. So this, okay, let me write it. IO.on. I'll write it down and then I'll explain a little bit later. So here we have on connection. That's connection. Please don't make errors or typos here, otherwise the server won't run. So here we need our socket. And the next thing that we need an arrow function here. This function is going to, like, we need to console log something, like when we connect to our server. So here, let's have a log. Let's just say connected to sockets. Here, we need to use socket.on. We need to establish connection between the client and the socket. So here, a client is supposed to emit something. Okay, let's say on setup. So if a client trigger this setup, and then our sockets will be notified that, okay, there's a client who connected to the socket. So here we're going to require a user ID of that user, and we are going to use it to join a room. So after we get the user ID, we're going to run a command socket.join user ID. So after the user has joined our socket, we want to broadcast we want to broadcast a message. So we want to tell the other clients that, okay, this user is now online. Let's say you are chatting with someone. If they get online, you should be notified that they're online. So here we're going to emit like a message so that all your friends can be notified, or the person that you have in your contact is supposed to be broadcasts.emit. So if you are broadcasting, then we are sending the message to everyone. So the message that we are going to broadcast here, let's say online user, and here we are going to use the user ID. So this is the event, and we are going to emit the data, the user ID. After that, we need to just console log the user ID so that we know like who's online, who's not online. So this is for test, but when you are in production, you just need to remove it. So here we have user ID. Oh, it's supposed to be ID. So we are going to have a functionality whereby if a user that you are talking to is typing, then you would know like, okay, the user is typing, just like any other chat applications whereby it can show, okay, a user is typing now, something like that. So we need to handle that here. A room. So for a start, we're going to console log, and we want to know the room also. So we're going to log the room. So let's just, the room is being passed from a user who's typing. So for us to know like where to send the typing, we have to know like, okay, where are we sending it? So there should be a room. So we haven't created our room yet, but we'll create it as soon as we finish with this typing stuff. So here we need to console log the room. So the room, that's what we are going to use. It's like an address. So if you need to send something, you need to send it to somewhere. So this is our address. We are sending the typing event to a specific room. So here we have typing, and we need to emit the room here. So that's all for typing. We also need stop typing. When they stop typing, we need to know that they're no longer typing. So it's going to be almost the same. So here, if a user gets online, most probably they want to chat. So they're going to join a chat. So here we're going to say join chat, and we require a room. So here we want to join the room. So down here, we want to log, here is supposed to be, let's just say user joined a specific room. So that's all for joining a room. So like, it's like you want to chat with a person. If you click on their chat, if you click on the chat, and then you are joining a room. If that's a group chat, multiple users will be in that room. If it is a one-on-one, so there'll only be 2 users in that room. So here we want to receive messages from our front end. So here we have new message. It's a new message. So here we are going to get a message as a JSON string. Then we can access that string, get the data that we want from that string, and we can send it back to the other user. So we need to extract the chat from the message that we receive, and we need to extract the room. After extracting the room, we also need to extract the sender. Okay, we're not going to use our receiver here. so we might as well leave it. But if there's need, we'll go ahead and try to implement it. We're going to console log. Okay, let's just say users not defined, and then we're going to return else. We need to do something. We need to get the sender ID here. We need to get the sender ID. Let's have sender ID. So this sender that we're accessing is the sender that we created from our message instance, and we've taken the sender. And we need to access it down here, get the ID, and store it in here. The next thing, we just need to console log the sender. So let's just say log the sender ID, and we just need to say sender here. Oh, this should be a string. Or you can just say message sender. And the other thing, we need our users. So this shouldn't be here, it should come down here. And this shouldn't be user, this should be users. Between sender and sender ID, what we need to do, we are going to have an if statement. We're going to have a condition here. So if not sender or sender ID, we're going to say user not defined, sender not defined, something like that. So let's just return here first. And we need to log something on top. Everything is coming out okay. So after we are done with this, after we've checked for our users, if the users are there and everything checks out, we need to emit the message back to the client, to the room where it belongs. So we have our room already. It's defined on top, but we haven't used it. So we need to use it down here. So we need to send to a specific room, and we need to emit a message. We need to emit an event with some data. So here it's supposed to be message received. And we are sending the new message. And after sending the message, we are going to emit message sent. And here we just pass a string. Let's just say new message. So this is just for assurance, just to check whether the message is sent or not. Last but not least, okay, it should be outside. So this one, we can close it, it's fine. So here, socket.off setup. Okay, supposed to be a string. Let's just go with setup here. An arrow function in here. We're going to log disconnected. Okay, we are going to log user offline, and we need to pass a user ID. So this is all that we need to do for sockets in our backend. But take note here. So after committing our changes, okay, we go back to VS Code. After committing our changes here from VS Code, start building our application and deploying it. So we just have to wait for it to build and deploy. After it's done, then we can test our application in Postman. It's been successfully deployed on our Railway. So now we need to go to Postman and see whether our backend is running or not. So in Postman, we're going to use unprotected routes to just test the backend. So here, let's take, for example, if I search for a Flutter job, I cannot find it. But before starting search, let's come up here. In our environments, we need to go and change the environment from localhost to our server that we hosted on Railway. So you just copy the URL and then you paste it here. So let's try to get all jobs here. We're going to send a request. So our status is 200. We're getting all the jobs. So that means our server is running and everything is fine with our server. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to implement socket on the client side. Let's go ahead and create our models for our Flutter application. So here we need to get the charts. You can send a request, get the charts. After getting the charts, you just need to copy the response. After getting the response, you need to go to your browser. In QuickType, you need to paste your response here. So there are some few parameters that we need to get rid of. So the first one is the v here. We need to get rid of it. So we're going to require our ID, chat name, and we're going to require our users. In our users, we are going to get rid of some properties also. So in our user, we are going to require ID, username, email, and profile.
Okay.
So we can get rid of this one here. We need to get rid of this v down here. And our latest message is okay. We're going to require content. Okay, latest message remains the same. We need to just get rid of the v here. We have the ID, sender, content, chat, and we have read by. Let's get rid of this list here. Okay, so this is what our model is going to look like. We need to copy. After copying, we need to go back to our VS Code. In our VS Code, we need to go to our models. In our models, we need to create a new folder. So we have a new folder here. We call it chat. In our chat, we have to create a new file. And let's give it a name. We're going to call it getchat.dart. And we're going to paste our model in here. So let's get rid of the first 5 lines on top. And let's save our model. So that's our first model. So when we are creating a job, we need to send an initial message. So let's check, for example, the approach that we are taking is, okay, so let's say you want to apply for a specific job. Let's say it's this job here. If you click on this button, then you must initiate a chat with the agent or the person who uploaded the job. So we must send an initial message, otherwise we'll get an error because we won't have a latest message if we just create a chat without creating the initial message. So to do that, we need to go to our Postman. We need to get this, and then we can create a model. So we have to give this model a name. Let's call it send message. Let's copy. Let's go back to our Flutter. In our Flutter, this is our response folder. In our request folder, we need to create another folder. Let's call it chat. In this folder, we need to create a file. We need to call it send message.dart. And then we need to paste our code in here. So let's save that. We are done with that one. Okay, so we need to create another folder in here. We've put the model in the wrong folder. Let's call it messaging. in this messaging folder, that's where we are going to, where did the folder go? Okay, I bet we didn't create. Messaging folder is where we are going to put this send message. But we also need the one for charts. So we need to create a chart. To create a chart, we need a user ID. So let's go to our Postman. This is how we are going to create a chart. We need to create a model also. So let's just select all, copy. We go back to our QuickType and we paste. After pasting, we need to give this model a name. We're going to call it create chart. After creating chart, we need to go back to our model. This is a request model, so it has to be in here. So let's create a file and let's call it create chart dot. So after creating, we need to paste our code and we need to get rid of the first 5 lines. So we are done creating that model. So here, when we create our first message, we need to get the chat ID from the response of the request that we send. So we need the model to get the chat ID. Let's go to our Postman. In our Postman, this is the response that we get when we send a message. So let's just copy this response. Let's copy the response. Let's go to our browser. In our browser, in our QuickType, we need to paste it. So here we need to get rid of almost everything. We just need the ID. So let's give it a name. So the name is going to be initial message. Let's call it initial chat. And we need to get that. And we need to go back to our VS Code. In our VS Code, we need to go back to our models. And in our models, we need to go to response. This is chat. And we need to create a new file. And we need to call it initial message. So I'm just going to call it initial msg dot. So in this file, we need to paste the code. We get rid of the first 5 lines and then we save. Here in our response, and this should be a messaging folder. In this folder, we create a new file. Let's call it messaging response dot. So we need to go back to our Postman. In our Postman, when we send a message, we get a response. We need this response. Okay, it should be this one. It has a lot of files. Okay, so what we can do here, we can copy the first one. We go to our QuickType and get rid of everything. We put a list first. And in our list, we paste. So we don't have an error. So everything is okay. So we have to give it a name. So the name has to be here. Let's call it received message. Received messages. It's supposed to be message here. Let's just go with message. So here we have our ID, sender, content, chart, ready. So we just take it as it is. We just copy. We go back to our Postman. We go back to our VS Code. In our VS Code, we need to paste the code. So this is a response. Since it's a response, we don't need the method. And we need to get rid of this to JSON. In our chart, we do the same. We don't need this to JSON. sender, we do the same also. So this is about it when it comes to our messaging response. So we need to go to our services. In our services, we need to open chat helper. Okay, in chat helper, we need to import a few things. So the first thing that we need to import is the HTTP package. So we need to come to chat helper here on top. We just need to paste it. And we also need our client here. So we need to come into our class and paste it. So let's go to one of the requests that we've made before. Okay, we're going to take a post request. Let's take a post request with headers in it. Or just take any request with headers. With the token in headers. Okay. Let's go back to our chart. And we paste it in here. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to remove this list, the model in the list. We're going to return a list dynamic here. And this one is going to be apply. So we need to import our shared preference. After importing our shared preference, everything is okay. We need our config. So in our config, let's see, we need to add the endpoints for these things that we're doing for messaging. So here we have the first one is chats URL. So chats is going to be API. Then here it's going to be chats. And we have the second one is for messaging URL. So here is going to be messages. And we need to get rid of the last item that we have. So this is it. Go back to our chats helper. Let's get rid of this. And here, let's return a list. And down here, let's return a list also. So here we need to pass false. And on top, we need to pass true. So it's going to be a post request. Let's see, what else do we need? And here is going to be chat URL. And we need a body. So our body, we need JSON encode. And we're going to encode a model dot to JSON. We don't have our model, so our model is supposed to be here to JSON. So that's about it. Okay, let's change the comment. We say apply. Apply for job. No, so we need to take care of the response. So let's just call it first is equals to. So here we are going to use our initial chart. And we are going to pass the response.body. So we need a string. Okay. So here, let's just try to access it. Here we have ID. So that means this first is our ID. So we need to pass this ID in our response. So here we need to pass first. So we are done with that one. So to use this one, we need to create a chat. After creating a chat, we need to send the first message. So the first message is coming from the system. So if a person applies for a job, it will send a message for the person who uploaded the job. Let's put it in that way. So we are initializing the first message. Create another request for getting all the charts. So let's just copy the one that we worked on and make a few changes to it. So here, let's give it a name. Let's say get conversations, something like that. Get conversation. And we're going to return a list. And this list is going to require get charts. So it's a get method. So in our get, we have to get rid of the body, and we come up to the top. Here, we don't need this model in here. So here we're going to return charts. Let's give this a name, charts. And our charts are going to come from get charts from. And in here, we have to pass the response body. It's supposed to be response body in here. And down here, we need to throw exceptions. Okay, these are charts. So that's about it when it comes to getting charts. So next we're going to work on our messaging, how to send the message and how to get the messages. So we need to create another helper in here. So let's create another file and let's call it messaging helper.dart. In helper, we need to create a messaging helper class, and we have to import our HTTP package as HTTPS, and we need to create our client here. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to go back to our chat helper. In our chat helper, we need to get this first request that we've made, and we're going to paste it in here. So we need to send a message. Okay, so here's going to be lowercase send message. So send message is going to require a send message model, and we need to import our shared preference in here. After importing shared preference, we need to import our config. After in config, we need to import .convert. Everything is fine here from the start, but we need to make some few adjustments here. So here we're going to have a received message with the name message. So in here, we need to put the response body, and we need to get rid of these lines that we have here. It looks like we're missing something. Okay, so our response body, we have to wrap it around a JSON decode. Okay, so let's cut it from here, and then we have JSON decode, and our source is going to be our response.data, and we are going to store it in messages. After we get the message, we're going to pass it here. And that's not all. We also need to create a map string dynamic. Let's give it a name, response map. So here is going to be JSON decode. Here we're going to have our response.body, and we need to pass our response map in our list here. So let's check and see whether we do have any errors or not. Okay, so we have to change our URL to messaging URL here. And let's check our messaging URL. It's fine. Okay, let's save our file, create a list for our messages. So let's copy the request that we have. We paste it down. So the name here is going to be get messages. So in our get messages, we're going to require a few parameters. And the first one is going to be a string. And it's going to be a chat ID. The next one is going to be an int. And it's going to be offset. So those are the two things that we need. Let's see. Okay, so this list here it has to be a list of received messages. And down here, since it's a get request, we need to get rid of this body here. And let's get rid of the response. And down here, we need to throw exceptions. Failed to load messages. So here it's supposed to be a get method, a get request, not a get method. So in here, we need to create a variable. And let's call it messages. Received messages from response.body. And let's return our messages down here. So we are done creating our helpers. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to try to work on our UI and then try to implement the logic at the same time. So before we start working on our UI, we need to create a chat controller. So here we'll create a new file, call it chat provider. We give it a name. After creating that file, we need to go ahead and implement it in our main.dart. So in our main.dart, we need to come down here. We need to hook it up here. So let's have our chat notifier. After putting our chat notifier here, it's imported on the top. We need to get rid of that. So let's look for it. Okay, so it's not here. Most probably I've exported it already. So you need to export it to put it in our exports file, this file that we have in our controller, and just change import to export, and then you'll be good to go. So let's save that part. Let's save our main.dart. So here, what we're going to do, first we need to get the charts. So to get the charts, we need to go into our chat notifier. Let's create a function here. Let's call it get charts. So our get charts is going to require our charts helper. Is a chat helper, get conversations. So here is going to return a future list. So we need to have it on top here. So we're going to have a late future, and we have to give it a name. Charts. We need to import the model. So here we're going to say charts is equals to. So that's it for getting charts. Go ahead and try to work on our UI for our chat lists. So we need to go to our lib folder. In our lib folder, let's visit views. In our views, let's go to UI. And in our UI, we are going to open charts. That's charts page. Okay, let's rename this file to charts list. Let's go back. So we are being redirected to this. So this should be our charts list. Okay, let's save our provider and close it for now. This is going to be our chat page. Okay, underscore page. This is going to be our chat list. So in our chat list, we need a scaffold, we need an app bar. Here we are going to call it charts. Okay, so changes are now showing here. So we have our charts. So in our scaffold, we need a body. So our body, we're going to wrap it around our consumer widget. So we're going to consume a chat notifier object. Let's import provider here. After importing provider, we're going to have a chat notifier. And we need to do one thing here first. We need to use our provider. So we need to get charts. So if the request is successful, we won't get an error, but we haven't fixed our return here. So here we're going to return a future builder. So our future builder will require a builder, and it will require a future. So our future is going to come from our provider. So here we need to access our provider. Okay, let's have our context first. In here, we're going to have context, and we're going to have snapshot, and we need to return something here. So let's have charts here. So in here, we need to have an if statement, but before we even go there, we need to have our list here. It has to be a list of get charts. Let's close this here. So if snapshot dot connection state is equals to connection dot waiting, connection state dot waiting, we need to return a circular progress indicator. But first, we need the center widget. In our center widget, we're going to require a child, and in our child, we're going to require a circular progress indicator. Let's close it here, and let's add const. Okay. Let's add const here. So we need to have else if snapshot has error. It's supposed to be snapshot dot has error. So if our snapshot has error, we need to return a text. Let's try to use our reusable text here. In our reusable text, we're going to say error, and we're going to print the error here. Let's give our style, app style. Let's give it 20. Let's go with K orange. Supposed to be value. And the font weight, let's make it bold. And let's close it. So there's a possibility that this snapshot can return an empty list. So we are going to have else if snapshot is empty. That snapshot snapshot.data is empty. Okay, so here we have to put an out checker. So here we are going to return something, a widget, but we have to go ahead and reuse the widget that we used in our search page, this search loading. So the best way that we could do it, let's cut it from here and let's put it in our common files because we are going to reuse it. Let's create a new file and let's call it a loader. We already have a loader, but the loader is empty. So if you have a loader file, you just go ahead in that loader file and you paste the code that we just cut. So here we just need to import a few things. We still need to import our screen utils. We save that. We go back to our search. In our search, we need to re-import. And let's go to our page here. In our page, and here we're going to say, okay, we can just say no charts. No charts available. Let's add const here. Else we are going to return the data. So here we're going to need a list view builder. But before we work on our list view builder, we need to create a final charts is equals to snapshot.data. So we need our item count. So here we're going to have chart.length. So our context should be in here and we should have our index. Let's close it here. So our error is gone. So in here, we need to return a widget. So first, let's just return a container. And let's give our container some height. And the height is going to come from the height from our constants. So we have this height in our constants. So that's where the height is coming from. Okay, and we need to multiply it by 0. Let's just say 0.26 for now. And let's give it a width. And the width is going to be width. And let's pass a color. And let the color be orange. Okay, orange here. And we need to close this here. Okay, so most probably we need to restart our application. If we don't have an error, yes. So we don't have a chart. So we get this message displayed if we don't have charts. So that means our endpoint is working fine. We're getting the data, but it's empty. So next we're going to work on this widget that we are returning here. And then we can proceed to work on our chat page where we are going to implement our sockets. Is what we're going to do, we are going to create a chat, but we want to do it manually. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to go to Mongodb. We need to connect to our database. We need to look for the user that we are logged in with. After we find the user, we need to go to Postman, create a chart, send a message, and then we can work on our widget while we are seeing the changes. Because right now, if we try to work on it, we'll work on it, but we won't be seeing the changes that we are making. So we can go ahead and access our database. It's taking a little bit long. While it's loading, let's change the size here to 80. And we want to wrap this in a gesture detector. So in our gesture detector, we're going to require onTap function. For now, let's pass an empty function. And for here, the color, we need to get rid of the color here. So we need to have box decoration. In our box decoration, we need to pass the color. So our color is going to be light gray, and we need to pass a border radius. let's give this a border radius of 12. So here we're going to require border radius, and this is supposed to be radius to circular, and you're going to give it a radius of 12. So let's wrap our gesture detector with a padding widget. So in our padding, we are going to use agencies.only, and we want to manipulate the bottom of it. And let's put const over here. So our database has loaded, so we need to open our database. I don't know why it's slow, but okay. So here's our database. At first it wasn't showing, so here we need users. Let's open our documents. So we have 15 documents. We are going to look for this user here because we need to go ahead and retrieve the user ID for this user that we have logged in with. We need to go to our Postman. So in our Postman, we are going to create a chart. Okay, let's create a chart with a different user, and we are the one who are going to be receiving the message. So let's go ahead and do that. So our chat is created. We need to grab the chat ID, and we need to send a message. So we need to paste our chat ID here. Our receiver is going to be the user that we've added here. So we need to send the message. So this is our message. So if we go back to our VS Code and revisit our charts, yes, we are supposed to get one tile since we have one chart available in our backend. So now we can design our widget while we are looking at it. Here we have to return a child, and our child is going to take a list tile widget. So in our list tile, we're going to require a title. Before we work on our title, let's add some other parameters that we need to work on. We need content padding. And our padding is going to be agencies.symmetric. And we need to manipulate the horizontal part of it. And we have to give it a padding of 4. Let's have our screen utils here. After our content padding, min leading width, and we're going to set it to 0. And we're going to have, okay, here it's supposed to be 0. Vertical padding, we're going to set it to 0. And we are going to have our leading. So in our leading, we're going to have a circular avatar, and we have to give it a radius. Let's give it a radius of 30. After giving it a radius, we need the background image. Okay, let's go ahead and close this bar so that we can have a cleaner working space. So here we're going to require a network image. So we need to provide a URL. So our URL here is going to come from our list of users that we have. So to get the list of users, we are going to need to access the users that we have in our chart. So here, let's create a variable here. Let's call it user, because we need one user. Okay. It's not supposed to be on top here. It's supposed to be, okay. In our list view, we need to create a final instance of our chart, and it has to come from our charts index. So we're going to have a user here is equals to chart. So here we want to access this list, users, and in our lists we want to find one user, but we need to do a little bit more. Okay, so we have an element here, so our element has to be a user. Let's just call it a user. So in this user, we need to get the ID, So in order for us to get the ID of the other user, we need to get the ID from our shared preference. Since we have the ID in our shared preference already, let's try to get it from our shared preference and try to use it. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to come to our login provider. In our login provider, we need to copy this get prefs and make a few changes to it. So we're going to put it in our chat notifier here. Let's paste it here. So we need a string. Let's call it user ID. So we need to get the user ID here. Here it's supposed to be get string. Let's get rid of this value that we have at the bottom. Okay, so in our chart, let's try to comment these out first, because we need to retrieve that ID. If we retrieve the ID and we're sure that we're getting it, and then we can continue. After getting our prefs, so here we're using our chat notifier. So what we are going to do, we're just going to print. We want to print the user ID here. Let's open our terminal. Let's open our debug console. Okay, so it's now. Let's try to reset. After resetting, let's go to our chat page. Okay, let's go ahead to our helper. We have to find out the key that we stored with. So in services, helpers, auth, it's user ID. It's user ID. Okay, now it's showing. Let's see how much time does it take for it to load. So here we go back. Now it's coming. So this is the user ID that we want to use. So let's go back to our chat screen. In our chat screen, let's just copy the chat notifier user ID from here. And we need to close it there. So this user, it's a whole user. So what we need here, we even need to use the picture here. So we can access that user. Okay. So it's a list. Okay. So here, the first thing that we need a profile. If we can retrieve the profile. Okay. So we've successfully retrieved the picture of the user who created the chart. Just to confirm that this is not our image, like the image belonging to this user, we'll come to the profile. This is the image of this account. So the image that we are showing is for the other user. Let's add padding to our list view. So in our list view here, we're going to require padding. So here we're going to use edge inserts dot from left, top, right, and bottom. So from the top, we need a padding of 20. It's going to be 20.w, w not edge, and from the top is going to be 10. And we have to put dot edge. Here it's supposed to be 20, and from the bottom it's going to be 0. So let's go ahead and continue working on our widget. So we need a title. So our title here is going to be a column, and in this column we're going to require main axis alignment, and it's going to be center, and we're also going to require cross axis alignment, and it's going to be start. After that, we need children. In our children, our first child is going to be a reusable text widget. So in our reusable text widget, we have to pass the text, and the text is going to be our username. So we need to access this list that we have, and we need to access the first element. It's supposed to be user here. User.first.username. And we need to pass the app style. So let's bring it down and let's put the app style here. We're going to give it a size of 16, and we have to give it a dark color. So let's go with kdark. Let's give it a font weight, and our font weight is going to be W600. So that's our first widget. So we need to give a little bit of space between this widget and the next widget. So here we are going to require a height spacer. We have to give it a size of 5. And we need another reusable text widget. Let's add a comma here. So here we need charts, and we need the last message. We need to display the last message here. It's supposed to be last message, and we need the content of the last message. So here we have to change the color. The color has to be dark gray, and the font weight here has to be normal. So this is our title. We are done with our title, so let's close our title here. Still in our list view, list tile, we are going to need a trailing. So our trailing is going to require a padding widget. So in our padding, we're going to require padding dot only, and the top we're going to give it 0, and we want the right side, and we have to give it a padding of 4. So here we can get rid of the top. So that's for our trailing. So we need a child in our padding widget. So our child is going to be a column. In our column here, we're going to require cross-axis alignment, and it's going to be cross-axis alignment dot end. After our cross-axis alignment, we're going to require main axis alignment. We're going to use main axis alignment dot space between, and we need children here. So in our child, in our children, our first child is going to be a reusable text widget. So here we need to show the time, manipulate our time. So to do that, let's go to our provider. We need to visit our chat provider. In our chat provider, we need to create a new function, but it's going to take a string. So let's give it a name, message time. So it's going to require a string. Let's call it timestamp. Here it's supposed to be string. So the first thing that we need datetime, datetime.now. Here we need datetime, also message time is equals to datetime.parse. We're going to parse timestamp, and after that we're going to deal with our dates. So we have now.year, message time.year, now.month is equals to message time.month. We need date, message time dot day. So if they're the same, then we are going to display it's today. So if this date matches the date of today, then we're just going to display today. But if it doesn't, then we need some other options. So we're going to display today, yesterday, or the date in a particular format. So here we're going to return date format. Yes, we need to import a package here. Most probably we need to install it. Let's close it. So this is a package. We need to add the package here so that we can deal with our dates. Okay, so it's done. Our message time here. So we need to have three options. We need else if, that's now.here. Okay, here's supposed to be equals to, and we're going to pass and we get 3. We have a month. Let's have a month here. We have a day, and let's put a day here. So the last one is equals to day minus 1 because it's for yesterday. Now.day, message.day minus now.day minus message time.day is equals to 1. We do have an error. Let's find out. Okay, so our error is here. So if it's equal to 1, we're going to return yesterday. Here is supposed to be yesterday. The spelling is right. Else we are going to display the time. So here we have else. We're going to return the formats. So here we are using YMD, and here we need to pass our message time. So this is how we format our dates. So we need to call this here in our chat, or each and everywhere that we need to do with the date. We don't have to do with date each and every time that we finding a date. So here it's supposed to be chat notifier dot, and we have to pass our date. So our date here is going to be chart dot updated at, and we have to make it to a string. So like that, the message was sent yesterday. Well, let's try to make it normal here and make it a little bit smaller. 12 would do. And we also need an icon. So after our widget, after this widget, we need an icon. And this icon is going to come from, okay, let's import Flutter vector icons here first. So here is supposed to be arrow forward circle. So this means we are sending the message, not receiving, because we have to differentiate between the message that we are sending or not. So here we need to set a condition. So let's come down here. We can say chat name. So our chat name we passed as an ID. Is equals to chat notifier.user ID. Okay, so here we need to have a different one. So this message is incoming. So this arrow has to be a little bit, it has to be pointing inwards. If we are sending, then the arrow will point the other direction. So we are done with this icon here. We're on our chat page. So let's go back to our lib folder, views. In our views, we want to visit the chat. We open the chat page. So here we have a container. We require a scaffold. So in our scaffold, we're going to require an a bar. So let's go back to our chat lists. In our chat lists, let's just copy the a bar that we have here and make some few changes. Let's paste it here. Let's import our custom a bar. We don't need a draw widget here. We need back. So here we're going to have a gesture detector. In our gesture detector, we are going to require onTap function, and we need to utilize our get for routes. So here it's going to be get back. Let's close it and let's import get here. Let's import screen utils. Okay, so let's just save this page here. So we want to redirect to this page when we click on this tile here. So here you want to use get. You want to get to a page. This page is chat page. Let's import get. After importing, let's close it here. Let's leave it like this because we are going to require some parameters later on. So we don't need consts. Okay, so that's our chat page. Let's work on it. So in here, let's open our chat page. Okay, that's our chat page. Let's close the tab. In our A bar, we're going to require actions. So in our actions, we're going to require a padding. In this padding, we are going to have padding, and let's have edgeinsets.o, and we need to pass a value 8. Let's pass a child, and our child is going to be a stack widget. A stack takes a takes children. So our first child is going to be a secular progress secular avatar, not secular progress indicator. So in here, we need a background image, and our image is going to be a network image. So a network image requires a URL. So we're going to pass the URL of we're going to pass the profile from the last page that we're on, the chat lists. So here, we're going to require a few parameters. Let's just write them. We can go ahead and finish everything. We need a final. It's going to be a string, and it's going to be title. We need another final. Let's copy the final that we have here. We require an ID. We require a profile, and we require a list. Okay, let's see. It's a list string. Let's call it user. And let's add our more parameters here. So we have an error here. Okay. So instead of commenting out, so this image is going to come from our widget. So here it's widget.profile. Oh, we don't have a back button. Okay. So here we've used get back, but we didn't put a child in it. So we require a child in our padding. So here we're going to use material icons, material community icons. Let's try to import them first. So here we're going to have an arrow left. Oh, we have these 4 errors here. So let's try to, okay. We need to deal with this first before anything. So let's go back. So in here, let's pass the parameters. So first we need the ID. So this ID is going to come from our chart. So here is going to be chart.id. We need the title. So we're going to give it the title of because like we need to display the name of the user who's sending that message. So that's going to be our title. So here we're going to access from user.first, and this one is going to be username. We need a profile, and our profile is also going to come from our user, but this is supposed to be a profile. So here we need a list. So here it's supposed to be users. Okay, it's supposed to be users or user. Either way, it's okay. So these users are going to come from our chart. We need to access it. Okay, because we need strings. So we need to access the lists and get the ID. Once we get the ID, then we pass it. So the next one that we're going to need is going to be, here it's going to be 1. Okay, let's see. Okay, we've put it outside of our list. Okay, so that's our list right there. So here, let's just format our code a little bit. Okay, let's go back to our chart. In our chart, let's just click. So here we have our profile. So our data has been successfully passed to the next page. So let's go back to our chat page. So here when we are displaying this name here, the charts, we should display the name of the user or who we are communicating with. So here it's supposed to be widget.title. So we're chatting with Andre King II. So up here, we are going to modify it a little bit so that we can display whether when a user is chatting, is texting. So we're going to have some logic so that we can switch between the title and the typing. So that's almost about it for our A bar. Let's go and visit our stack. In our stack widget, we've put the circular avatar. So after the circular avatar, we need a positioned widget. This positioned widget requires a child, and this child is going to be a circular avatar also. So we need to give it a radius. This radius is going to be 5, and we need to give it a background color. So here it's 5, not 5 key. Here we need a background color. So here our color, let's go with green. Since we haven't implemented our logic yet, let's just go with green for the meantime. It's supposed to be colors. So let's put it to the right side. So that's our online status. When a user that we're communicating with is online, then we need to show that green button, or we are going to display a gray color. So now let's try to work on our body. So in our body here, we're going to require a consumer widget. Let's have a chat notifier object. Let's import provider. Let's give it a name. Lowercase c. And here we're going to return a future builder. But first, before we return a future builder, let's return a safe area. So our safe area returns a child. So our child here is going to be a padding. And in our padding, we want to use edge inserts dot symmetric. In our symmetric, we need to manipulate the horizontal side. And we need to give it a padding of 12. So our padding is a child property. So we have two widgets here. Let's bring this down. So let's have our child property. Our child is going to be a column. In our column, we're going to require children. So our first child is going to be an expanded widget. So an expanded widget has a child property, and in our child, we're going to return a future builder. So what we're going to do, let's go back to our chat lists. In our chat lists, we've worked on a future builder. So let's just close this future builder that we have here, and let's just copy as it is, and we can make some few changes to it to suit our needs. So let's just paste it down here. Outside, not outside. Let's format our code, but it won't format because of the errors, I guess. And let's see. So here we need to return received messages, a list of received messages, and we don't have a future as yet. So let's leave it like that. Okay, Control Z. We've exported them in our exports. You do not have messages, but this is not going to show because a chat won't even we're not going to initialize a chat without a message. So this widget won't even show. But either way, we can keep it. So here, let's get rid of the users that we have here. And let's get rid of this widget that we are returning down here. And let's just return a container. And let's close the container here. So let's see. Okay, this is the error that we have here. So we need to, for us to get our messages, we don't have to do it through the chat provider, because we need to use it again when we need to get the messages. Like when we are doing pagination, we need to use it in the init state. So it's better for us to use it here. So this is how we get our messages. We have this late future message lists that we've declared on top, and we've put it in our init state, and our future is going to be message lists. It's going to be message list. And one other thing that we need to take care of, we need to go to our helper. So services, helpers, and then we go to messaging helper. So when we created this request, we've put these on top, but we didn't concatenate here. So we need to concatenate, because in order for us to get a chat, we need to get it with the chat ID. So you need to concatenate. Here we are going to require the messaging URL, and we are going to require the chat ID. This chat ID is the one that we are passing from this page to the next page. So let's go back to our chat ID. Let's go to our chat page. In our chat page here, this is our chat ID that we are passing from our chat list. So to use it, we just say widget.chatID, and our offset here is 1, and we've set an initial offset of 1 here. So let's go back to our messaging helper. We need to take care of something. We didn't include our offset. So here, after concatenating here, we need to have our offset. So we're going to have a page. Okay, let's close this bar here. We're going to have a page. It's going to be offset dot to string. So that's how we're going to pass our offset into our in our backend. So let's see whether we did make any error. Okay, let's save it like this for now. So let's go back to our chat page. In our chat page, we need to work on this pretend widget down here. And then we can go ahead and implement sockets. So we're going to return a list view builder. This list view builder is going to take this instance from like the list messages, and we're going to have chat here. So after that, we need the padding. Padding requires padding. Let's have our padding here. Edge inserts dot only. We're going to manipulate top, and we're going to have a padding of 8, and we need to manipulate the bottom, and we're going to have 12 here. So here we need to have our child property. In our child, we're going to return a column. So in this column, we're going to return required children. So our first child is going to be a reusable text widget. We have to display the time. So here, our time format, we are formatting our time from the functions, that function that we've created in our provider. So here, we need to access it and we need to provide a timestamp, and our timestamp is going to come from this chart. And we are going to use update time. Do we have, okay, chat.chart. Is it? Okay, and we need to make it a string. Let's bring this down. So let's have our app style here. So in our app style, we need to have the size. So let's give it a size of 10. It's time, it has to be a little bit smaller. And we need a color. So our color here is going to be dark. And we need font weight. So for the font weight, we are going to go with normal. Let's go with normal first. So we have our date here. It's so little. I don't know whether you can see or not, but let me make it bigger for now so that you can see. So we have our date. Since it's a date, I'm going to make it bigger for the meantime so that we can just work whilst we are visualizing everything, and then I can change the size a little bit later. So in our column, we're going to require a space between this widget and the next widget. So our next widget is going to be a chat bubble, but before we get to the chat bubble, let's have a height spacer. In our height spacer, we need size. We're going to give it a height of 15. Let's add const here. So we're going to have a chat bubble. So we have already installed the package in our pubspec YAML. So let's go to our pubspec YAML and take a look. So in our pubspec YAML, we have this package here, the chat bubble, Flutter chat bubble. That's the one that we are going to use to have chat bubbles. So let's go back to our page. So in our chat bubble, we're going to require alignment. So here, let's do one thing before, because this is confusing. This here, this chat that we have, let's call it data. Let's call it data here, because we need to access this data dot sender ID is equals to the user ID. So our user ID is coming from our chat notifier dot user ID. So we are going to align the widgets to the center right. So here it's alignment dot center right. Here is going to be center left. So that's it for alignment, and we need background color. Okay, let's close it here. We need background color, and we're going to use the same logic. So let's copy this. Okay, let's make it visible. So our color here is going to be K orange. Or else our color is going to be K light gray. Let's try to go with K light blue. Okay, we haven't finished to put our properties. That's why we're going, well, that's why we're having an error. So let's have an elevation. Let's set our elevation to 0. Let's have a clipper. So our clipper here, we're going to use clipper form. And we need to give it a radius. Let's give it a radius of 4. Let's make it 8. We can change it later. Let's have type. So our type here, we need to use our logic. So first, second. So here is going to be bubble type dot send. Bubble type dot receiver. After our bubble, we need a child. And our child is going to be a container. In this container, we're going to have constraints. So let's use box constraints here. So we don't want our message to, if it is a long message, we don't want it to occupy the whole screen. So we are going to have max width, not max height. We're going to have max width. Is 0.8. And our container here, our container takes a child. So let's have our child as a reusable text widget. Let's see. It's reusable text widget. So we require text and we require app style. So let's separate them first. So first, let's have our app style, and our size is going to be 14. Our color is going to be K-light. And we're going to have font weight. Our font weight here is going to be normal. So for the colors, we need to differentiate them since our bubbles, they are going to have different colors. So the first thing that we need to do, we just need to have the bubbles first on the screen, and then we can choose which color to assign. So here, we're going to require data dot. So let's try to restart our application. So we did, like we have this. So let's see. Here, white is okay. White is okay. So our messages will be on the other side, will be on the right side. The ones that we are receiving are on the left side. So let's size down the date. Let's size down to 12. Wow, 12, that's too much. Okay, let's make it 16 for now. Okay, so after our expanded widget, down here, let's close this. Let's close this. That's our expanded widget. After our expanded widget, we need to return a container. Oh, that's a future. Let's see. Okay, that's after, not before. We need a container. So in our container, we're going to require padding. In our padding, we need to use edge insets. Here we're going to use edge insets.all, and we want to give it a padding of 12. So let's have our child. Before our child, let's have alignment. So alignment is going to be alignment.bottom center. And our child is going to be a text field. So a text field takes a controller. So let's have our controller first, not a const. Takes a controller. So we need to create a controller right here on top. We need a text editing controller. Text editing controller. And we have to give it a name. So these are text editing controller. Okay, let's modify it a little bit so that we can be more specific when we want to use it, because we are going to have a lot of messages in this page. So it's message controller. So let's go down here. We can put our controller. We want to modify our cursor color. Okay, let's make it K dark gray. Our keyboard type is going to be text input dot multlines. We're going to require a style. And here we're going to utilize our app style. In our app style, we need to pass the size, and our size is 16. Our color here is going to be a colors.gray .shade 600. And our font weight is going to be no, let's use kdark dot value. We need our font weight. Our font weight is going to be W500 here. Okay, let's try to save it and see whether it can come up. Nope. Okay, so we're going to have a decoration, and we need input decoration. So as for input decoration, we're going to require some certain properties. The first one is dense. We're going to set it to true. context padding, content padding. Our content padding is going to be agencies.all, and we have to give it a padding of 6. Let's pass our screen utils. After that, we need field. Our field is going to be true. Let's move on. Our field color is going to be white. So here is going to be color, and we need klight value here. We need our klight value. So after that, what we need to do, we need a suffix icon. We need a suffix icon. So our suffix icon takes a widget. So we are going to use a gesture detector. So in our gesture detector, we're going to have onType function, and we are going to pass an empty function for now. We need a child, and our child is going to be an icon. So here we're going to use material icons. So icons.send. Yeah, okay. So it's now showing. Let's modify it a little bit. We need to set the size. Let's give it a size of 24 in here. So after our expanded widget, down here, let's close this. Let's close this. That's our expanded widget. After our expanded widget, we need to return a container. Oh, that's a future. Let's see. Okay, that's after, not before. We need a container. So in our container, we're going to require padding. In our padding, we need to use agencies. Here we're going to use agencies.all, and we want to give it a padding of 12. So let's have our child. Before our child, let's have alignment. So alignment is going to be alignment.bottom center, and our child is going to be a text field. So a text field takes a controller. So let's have our controller first, not a const. Takes a controller. So we need to create a controller right here on top. We need a text editing controller. Text editing controller. And we have to give it a name. So these are text editing controller. Okay, let's modify it a little bit so that we can be more specific when we want to use it, because we are going to have a lot of messages in this page. So it's message controller. So let's go down here. We can put our controller. We want to modify our cursor color. Okay, let's make it K dark gray. Our keyboard type is going to be text input dot multlines. We're going to require a style, and here we're going to utilize our app style. In our app style, we need to pass the size, and our size is 16. Our color here is going to be a colors.gray dot shade 600, and our font weight is going to be, let's use K dark dot value. We need our font weight. Our font weight is going to be W500 here. Okay, let's try to save it and see whether it can come up. Nope. Okay, so we're going to have a decoration, and we need input decoration. So as for input decoration, we're going to require some certain properties. The first one is dense. We're going to set it to true. Context padding, content padding. Our content padding is going to be agencies.all, and we have to give it a padding of 6. Let's pass our screen utils. After that, we need field. Our field is going to be true. Let's move on. Our field color is going to be white. So here is going to be color, and we need klight value here. We need our klight value. So after that, what we need to do, we need a suffix icon. We need a suffix icon. So our suffix icon takes a widget. So we are going to use a gesture detector. So in our gesture detector, we're going to have onType function, and we are going to pass an empty function for now. We need a child, and our child is going to be an icon. So here we're going to use material icons. So icons.send. Yeah, okay. So it's now showing. Let's modify it a little bit. We need to set the size. Let's give it a size of 24 in here. So let's go ahead and set the color. So our color here is going to be light blue. After that, it's okay. Okay, I've paused the application here, so we won't be able to see the changes for a while. So let's have our hint text. We're going to have our hint text here. So in our hint text, we're going to say type your message here. After that, we're going to have hint style. We're going to use app style. We're going to give it a size of 14. And we're going to give it a color of K dark gray. And let's give it a font weight. Our font weight is going to be normal. So here we need to close this. Let's save it for now. So after our hint style, we need to have our focus border. So we're going to use outline. So here we're going to require a border radius. So here we're going to have dot circular. Let's have dot all, and we're going to put radius dot circular here. Let's give it a radius of 12. Okay, in here, let's see. We can have border side. Okay, we're inside the border radius, so we have to go outside border side. So in our border side, we're going to require a color. So our color is going to be, so here we need kdiagram. So here it has to be dot value. Okay, let's save that for now. Let's try to resume our application here, and we can restart our application. We need to go to our charts. Okay, so it's coming out okay. Let's pause it. So we're going to have enabled border, and it's going to have the same properties. So after this, we're going to require a few properties, but the best way that we can do it, suffix icon. Okay, let's extract the widget and call it messaging text field. We need to cut it from here. Let's go in our chat. In our chat, let's create a new folder. Let's call it widgets. In this new folder, let's create a new file. Let's give it a name, textfield.dart. Let's paste our code in here. Let's import the material, and let's import our constants. Flutter screen utils. Okay. Let's save it first. We come back to our chart. In our charts, we need to import this widget. Okay. So here we're going to pass the properties that we need to manipulate in this page from this widget. Because if you try to work on everything in one page, it will be a lot. So we're going to cut this suffix icon from here. So let's just have suffix icon here. And we can just give it a random name. Either way, it's okay. On top, we're going to create a widget, a final widget. Suffix icon. And it's required in here. And then we paste our suffix icon. Let's format our code. So far so good. Back to our text widgets. So we need to add some other properties here. We need unchanged. So it's a void string, unchanged. Okay, so let's copy that from there. So here, let's give it the same name, unchanged. And let's pass it here. Here's a final. We need on editing complete. Okay, so first we copy the name, we paste it here, and we copy this. We create a final on top. We need untabbed outside. Okay. Untab outside. Let's create a final value here. And the last that we need is unsubmitted. Let's give it this. Let's give it the same name. Let's add these formal parameters on top. Let's format our code here. So here, if we need to manipulate some other values, or we just need to pass them to the other widget so that we can manipulate them from there. Store our sockets. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to open our terminal. Let's clear the terminal. We need to run the command flutter pub add sockets dash io client. We need to add our client because we didn't add our client in our pubs for YAML as yet. So we need to do that. After installing our sockets, we need to come up here on top, import it, and we need to import it as IO. And we need to add a line here. IO socket here. So here we're going to create a connection. So here it's IO.io. And we need to pass a URL. In our VS Code, we have our URL already. So let's go to config. And then we copy our URL from here. We go back to our chat page. We paste it here, but we need to add HTTP // So that's our URL. And we need to pass a string map. A string dynamic, not a string map. That's a string dynamic. String dynamic, we need to have transportation, we need to have transport. So in here is going to be WebSockets, WebSocket. And the next thing that we need auto connect. Here is supposed to be a string, and the name is auto connect. And here is going to be false. And we just need to close it here. So let's just check these spellings and see whether we did make a mistake. So here I did make a mistake. It's supposed to be auto connect with the capital letter C. Is equals to false. Transport WebSocket. That part is okay. To connect to our socket, we need to emit the setup event and we need to send the user ID. But our user ID is in our chat notifier. So we need to create an instance of our chat notifier here. But the most important thing, you have to set listen to false. We've already gotten our chat ID already. So it's stored in there. So you just need to get access to the instance, and then you get the ID, and then here you set up. So here, this is the line of code that you need to run to emit this setup. So after you've set up, you need to connect. So here it's supposed to be socket dot connect. So after connecting, we need to have socket dot on connect is supposed to be on connect. So in here, we're not going to pass anything. So let's print something. Let's say connected to front end. We've made an error. So here it's supposed to be transports WebSocket, not transport. So if you write transport here, you're bound to have an error. It's supposed to be transport here. So if everything is all right here, and if this setup is emitted, and this user ID is sent to our backend, our front end is supposed to print this statement when we get onto the chat page. Okay, let's see. Let's try to reset it because most probably we're already connected. So the best thing that you can do, you can have a side-by-side view of your backend and your front end. I'll do that in a minute so that you can see all the magic happen. So here we are connected to our front end, and in our backend, so let's have our railway here. Okay, so we come here. If we go to deployment, our console here is showing that we have connected. This is our user ID that we've sent from our front end, and we've connected to socket because like we've logged some of the stuff in our backend. So we've successfully connected to our sockets. So this stuff won't show like if you're working on like if you're working on localhost, it's okay, it will show on your console. But if you want to check the progress of like the logs that you've made to your application, then you can just come to your railway server, you view logs, and you go on deploy logs. Every log that you made in your backend, they'll be shown here. So we're going to be using this log for clarification, like when we are sending data, especially message data, because I want to show you like the message that we are going to send. How long is it going to be? We are going to log everything on this log and then analyze. Then we can go back to programming. So let's go back into our VS Code. Since we are connected, we have to move on with our programming. So the next thing that we need to send a notification, to emit another event. So here it's supposed to be on online users. I hope I'm writing the correct thing. On online users. Then here we are going to receive the data. If there's a user online, then their data is going to be sent to us and we need to process that data. So here we have user ID. So here we need to create a list in our chat notifier where we are going to add all the users who are online. But most probably, since it's a one-on-one chat, for now, we don't have to get all the users. We can just get one user so that we can test our application. So let's go ahead and visit our chat controller and create the lists. So in our controllers, let's open our chat provider. Let's have a list here. It's going to be a list string. And initially is going to be, okay, let's just say, let's give it a name first. And initially is going to be an empty list. So we need getters and setters for the lists. So we have list string. Get online, and we need to make it a private list here. So this is the list that we're getting. And we need a setter. Online users, this is a list string. So we can just copy from here. And let's call it a new list. So in our new lists, we are going to set this online to new lists. And here we're going to have our notify listener. So we are done creating our lists. So let's go back to our chat page. So since here on top we have our chat notifier, let's see. We have our chat notifier already. So we are going to use our chat notifier.online. So here we need to replace range. The starting point is 0. The ending point here is going to be chat notifier dot online dot length. And we need to provide a replacement here. So our replacement is going to be the user ID. And that's all. So let's take, for example, here. Oh, that's only possible if we have connected to a user and we want to communicate with them. So for now, we cannot test this until we have another device online that we are communicating with. So we are done with that part. Let's move on. So here we have circuit.online. We need to emit an event. So here our event is going to be typing. We're not emitting. In fact, we are receiving an event. So if we receive a typing event, then we need to do something with the data. So this is the status. We're going to call it status. We need to create a Boolean value in our chat notifier. And so let's have a Boolean here. First, let's close this. And let's close this. Let's call it, okay. Let's give it a specific name. Typing is equals to false. That's the initial value. So here, so that's our getter. Now we need to create our setter. So let's just say typing status. So here it's of type bool. Say new status or new state, either way, it's okay. And in here, we need to set our typing to the new state. New state, we need to close, and we need notify listener. And then we need to save. So in here, we need to change the state of our Boolean. So this is chat notifier dot online. Not online. That's typing is equals to false. No, that's not false. So if we receive a typing event, so that means here it is true. Let's see what's the problem here. Setter isn't. Okay, so our setter is not of that name. So here we need to call this typing status, and we need to set it to true, and then it will trigger changes to change the Boolean. So after this, we're going to need, so when we receive the opposite, it's like a stop typing event. So these events, they have to be exactly the same as they are in our backend. So we're going to go ahead, open our backend, and open our front end, and then we compare them side to side because we don't want to make any errors. So here status is true, and is going to change the same status, but here is going to set it to false. So now we need to deal with our messages. So here is supposed to be message received. So here it's new message received. And we're going to deal with our message in here. So we need to create two functions on top because we need to send the typing event, and we need to send the stop typing event. So let's create the Let's create it a little bit lower. Let's create it below. So here we're going to send a typing event. So when sending a typing event, we're going to require a string, and let's call it status. So this string is going to be our chat room number. So that's our chat ID, because we need to send it to a specific ID, a specific room, because if you emit it to everyone, then everyone's phone is going to just change to typing, yet no one is sending the message. So here we need to emit an event. Okay, it has to be a string. The first one that's sent. So if it is sent, we're going to require typing. Oh, that's typing. Okay, typing, and here we are sending status. And there's one other thing that we forgot to do, because a user need to join a room. So we just connected, but we didn't join a room. So that's the first thing that should happen. We connect to sockets and we join a room, because we're on a chat page. So here we're going to have void join charts. So we don't require anything here. So we're going to have socket dot emit. So the event that we're emitting is join charts. And we are going to send widget.id. That's our chat room. So we can join chats in we can use it in our init state. So let me go back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to join and I'm going to go to our railway. So here, user joined the room. So this is the room number, and this is the user who just joined the. We need to create another function here to stop typing. So here we say send stop typing. So here it's supposed to be stop typing. So on message received, when we receive a message, then we'll emit this stop typing to the room so that we can set the boolean on the other user's phone to false. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then it will remain typing. We need to send an event that will trigger the boolean to be set to false. So here, if we receive a message, the first thing that we need to do, we need to send the stop typing, and we need to send it to the room that we're in, widget.id. And then this new message received is going to be received message is equals to, okay, received message is equals to because we need to, since it's a JSON, it's a JSON string, so we need to convert it into a model before we add it to the list of our messages. So here, it's supposed to be received messages from JSON. So we need our JSON object. New message is received. So down here, received message dot ID dot sender dot ID. Okay, so is not equal to chat notified dot user ID. So if this sender is not us, then we need to add it to a list. So we need to create a list whereby we are going to store our messages that will be displaying. So in here, we're going to go with the old style. We're going to set state. So we're going to have messages dot insert. And we have to insert it at index 0. And we are going to insert this message. So this message it has to be of type received message. So let's copy this here and create the lists. So we're going to have lists. This is the type, and we're going to give it a name, messages. Or it can be now. So here. So that's it for when we receive a message. So now we need to deal with sending a message. To send a message, we need to create a function, and this function will require a string, content chat ID, and it will require a receiver. And here we need to have our model. So we're going to pass the data in from our model. So let's go ahead. So here we need our helper. So it's going to be messaging.helper. We're going to send a message here. We have our model already. So after sending the message, we're going to get the response. So here we need to use then. This value, let's just change it to response. So here we need to have a variable. We need to emit the message to our backend as soon as we send it. So we send the message to our backend and we need to emit it to our sockets. That's the process. So let's give it a name. Let's just call it emission here. Is equals to, so in our response, we pass the list dynamic. So in this list dynamic, we want to access index 2. So let's go to our message helper. So here, this is our message. Our message is index 2, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is our index. We are passing it as this response map. That's what we are passing. So let's go back to our chat page. In our chat page, after passing this message in this variable, we need to emit it to our backend. So here, we're going to have our sockets. We're going to emit an event. And our event is going to be new message. And we need to pass the data. So the data that we're passing is the emission that we have here. Okay, so let's just write it emission and let's close it. After closing it, we need to send a stop typing event, and we need to pass the room ID, widget.id. And we need to set state in here. So the first thing that we need to do, we need our message controller, and we need to clear. And next, we need to insert our message into our messages lists. So here, we're going to insert. Our index is going to be 0, and the element that we are inserting is going to be our response index 1. Okay, so let's go up on top. Okay, so to deal with this in a good manner, let's make it a late, so that we won't put this now checker everywhere that we are trying to write this message. So we are done with sending a message. So the next thing that we need to do, we need to get the receiver ID. So to get the receiver ID, what we are going to do here, so we're going to have a receiver ID. Let's create a string on top. Okay, let's just make it a string. And let's call it receiver. So here it's going to be an empty string. So let's go back to our consumer widget. Here we're going to have our receiver is equals to, so we have two users in our widget.user. So we need to find one, which is our receiver. Okay, so this element is going to be user. So let's say, okay, it's not user. Let's make it ID since it's a string. So ID is not equal to, here we are going to have our chat notifier dot user ID. So just to run a test here, we can print receiver. So let's print them both so that we can see the difference. Chat notifier dot user ID. So let's open our terminal, debug console. So we have two IDs. The first one is for the receiver. The second one is for the other user. So we've successfully retrieved our ID. So we can get rid of the print statements. Okay, so let's go to our A bar. Okay. We should have like wrapped the whole widget, the whole scaffold in a consumer widget, but is it too late for that? It's not too late for that. Let's go ahead, close the, let's cut this from here. I'm going to paste it down here first. Let's comment it out. I'm going to cut this from here. And I'm going to paste it here. So our scaffold, let's see, this is our scaffold. We need to cut our scaffold from here, and we need to return it here. So everything is fine on the top. Let's see what will happen if we paste back this code. So let's cut it from here. Let's put it in our body. So let's close it here. So everything is going accordingly. Let's format the code here. Here, we need to access our chat notifier. So let's have chat notifier dot typing. Okay, so if not typing, if it is false, then we're going to return this. We're going to return this widget. And if a user is typing, then we're going to return a string typing with some dots. So here we need to make changes on the color. So we need to access our list file.online that contains here the element that we are going to look for is a receiver. So if the other person is online, so that's the receiver, then our color is going to be green. So here we're going to have colors.green. Else we're going to have colors.gray. View builder, list view builder requires a scroll controller. So let's go on top. Yeah, okay. Before we create our scroll controller, change this list received messages, make it into an empty list, not a late. Just make it into an empty list. So up here on top, we need to create a final scroll controller. we have to give it a name. Scroll controller is equals to scroll controller here. So we need to pass this scroll controller in our list view builder. Okay, so this is our list view builder. We have our controller here. Let's just paste it there. So the next thing that we need to do, we need to handle our lists, like how to scroll. We need to use the scroll controller. So here we're going to create a void. Okay, let's call it handle next. So when we are doing pagination, we need to handle how we are going to get the data, and we are going to achieve such thing using our scroll controller. So here we have our handle next. In our handle next, we're going to require scroll controller, and we're going to add a listener. And here it has to be asynchronous. So here we have to say, to add a condition, if scroll controller has client, then we need to pass another condition in here. So here is going to be scroll controller dot position. Max scroll extent is equals to position dot pixels. Okay, let's bring it down. So if that condition is met, let's have a print statement here. Most probably this one is going to be called when we have like bunch of messages, tons of messages. So here we'll be loading new messages. Let's close it down. So to load messages, we need to set a condition also. So if our messages list length is more than 12, so our pagination is 12, right? Then it's greater than or equal to 12, and then we can run the command. We want to get messages. Here we require offset, and it's going to be plus plus. Okay, let's see what's the error here. Require int offset. So here we're just going to pass offset. So we need to call this handle next in here. So we haven't dealt with sending messages and creating charts. So let's see what we have left up here on top. So after handling this pagination, after getting messages, we need to set state. So let's come up here. So we're going to have, we need to send the data that we get from the database to our list that we've created. So in here, the first thing that we need to do, here is going to be final. Let's see the name on top. Message lists. This message list, we used it as our builder in it. Not a builder. So here we need to have messages is equals to messages plus message list. So we might have the messages that we are sending, that we're adding to the list, and we have the messages that we are getting from the list. So here it's supposed to be message lists. Okay, so we have an error here. So we need to pass an out checker here. And here we need to change these lists to the list that we just created, and we don't need a now checker, and everything else remains the same. So our application is still running, so that's okay. So here we need to go on and send messages. So to send messages, we are going to need to have something in our suffix icon here. So we are going to call our send message. So we need the content, and the content is going to come from our controller. So let's just have a string here. Let's call it msg is equals to message controller dot text. So the content is going to be the message, and the ID, this ID is the user ID. Is the user ID that we are going to create a chat with. So let's go ahead and see which ID is it. Oh, this is chat ID. So if it is chat ID, it's widget.id. And our receiver is already defined. So that's it for sending a message. So here we need to use the other parameters that we've created before. The first one is on changed. So we need to emit typing event. So our room is going to be a widget.id. The next thing that we need on editing complete. So on editing complete, if a person press enter, we need to send a message. So here, we can just copy this and paste it here. Let's pause our application for a little bit. And on submitted, do we have on submitted? So here on tabbed outside, we need to send a stop typing event. So here is going to be widget.id. Let's see whether we have on submitted. On submitted, we have it on top. That's why it was giving us an error. So let's see. Okay, on submitted, we need to send the message. Okay, so our application is not running. So let's try to restart it. Application will be working fine. Mine, I made some adjustment when I put the image and stuff, so that won't work with our chat bubble. So I had to remove them. So we are back on track, but our message has to be down. It doesn't have to be on top. So we need to make some adjustments. So let's come to our list view. In our list view, we need to include another property called reverse, and we need to set it to true. So don't mind that we are getting messages when we are setting state a lot. So these are messages. This is the message that I just sent. Let me try to send another one. So don't mind the messages which are appearing twice for now. We will fix it because when we are setting state, then it's getting the messages from the list again. But our message is here, our hello message. So we have hey. So let's go ahead and send another message here. Let's just send something random. Let's say this is what we sent. Okay, so here, if I press back, our message is not updating. It's not because it's not getting it from the backend, but we are not refreshing this page. once we get to it. So instead of getting back here, we need to get to the main screen. So our main screen keeps the context of the zoom drawer keeps the context of the page that we're in. So we're going to utilize that. So here we require a main screen. Let's add a console over here. Yes, so our message is updating. We just send something random. If you press back, then our message is updating. So don't mind my date, like my dates are wrong. So that's why they're displaying yesterday. Okay, so now I need to install this application on another device so that we can test real-time messaging. And then we can go ahead and implement the logic on our job so that we can apply a job straight from the job. So I've installed the application on the other device. Let's go ahead and try our real-time messaging. So our user right now is offline. So I'm going to open the application. So if I start typing something, then our status changed to online, and then the typing is shown on top. And if we send a message, that message is received. And same as me typing here, the other device will get the same changes. So let me go back and forth. Next message come in, and let me reply. So our messaging is working fine. The next thing that we need to do, we need to go ahead and try to create a chat from our jobs page. So here, so we have our status and we have our typing. So if we receive a message, then we stop typing. So everything is going accordingly. And as for pagination, let's see. Yes, we have all our messages here. Let's try to go back. And let's come back. Pagination is working fine. So here we've triggered our pagination. That's why we have this loading here is the one that we've put on top. This pagination, this is in pagination. So our pagination is working fine, as well as our messaging. So we can message, send, receive a message, and then the typing status and the online status. So everything is working fine. So we need to go to our jobs and try to implement the logic to create a chat and send the first message, because the message that we're using here, or the chat that we're using, we've created it in Postman. So right now we need to go to our jobs page. We go to our views UI, and then jobs page. In our jobs page, we need to open this padding here. So let's close this. Let's close the tab. We need to go down here when we are applying for a job. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to create chart. We need to create chat model. That's the first thing that we need. Model is equals to create chart. So here we need to pass the user ID. So our user ID is going to come from our job. So it's the same as the agent ID. That's why we've put the agent ID when we're creating a job. So here it's going to be job dot. We have agent ID. So they're initializing a chat with the person who uploaded the job, which is the agent. So next we need to have our chat helper. We need to apply. We have our model already. We need then. Okay, so it's a list dynamic. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Okay, so we have an ID and we have our boolean. So here, let's just say response. After we get the response, we need to have a condition here. So if response is true, so our boolean is in 0, then we need to do something. We need to send a message. So for us to send a message, we need a model. And this is the model that we require. So we need the content. The receiver of this message is going to be the agent. The chat ID is going to come from our response. So it's going to be response 1. And the content, we can write something formal. Or we can just say, hey, I'm interested in the job that you posted. Something like that. I'm interested in. So here to make it a little bit official, because like an agent or an administrator might upload multiple jobs. So they have to know like which job are you talking about. So we need to have the title here. And we need to specify the location. So our location is going to be job.location. So this is how we are going to create a chart. So we haven't tested creating a chart yet, but we are going to try now. Okay, so let's go ahead and try. Oh, we forgot one thing. But anyways, it's okay. Let's go ahead. So I'm not sure whether it was successful or not. Okay, so here, let's print something first. So after we send the message, oh, we didn't send a message, did we? This is the content, but we need to send the message. So we didn't send the message here. So here we're going to require our messaging helper. We need to send a message and we have our model already. So here we need to use when completed. So we need to do something after completing. So we need to navigate back. Let's go back to our main screen. Let's add const here. Let's close it. So we need to see whether this create chat is working. It's not there. So we need this apply. It's going to be chats. Okay, when creating a chat, we require an ID. When creating a chat, we require an ID. So we didn't specify the ID. Let's see whether we specified the ID. We did specify the ID. We put the ID in the model. So everything is okay, unless the job was created by an account that we've deleted from our backend. That's a possibility. Okay, so chat helper, in chat helper, we're going to print response here. Okay, status code. So now you just need to refresh the application so that you can sync in all the settings. So now if we go to a job and just press apply, so our chat has been created. So here, let's open our terminal. In our debug console here, the statements that we've printed, we have 200 and we have tab. And if we go to our chat, so whenever you press that, you're going to send a message. And this is the message here. So let's try to apply for another job. Let's have this job here. Go to our charts. Python, Java.